So welcome everybody, and thank you for coming. It's nice to see so many faces. And today, Alberto García Gómez is going to be talking about bridging ethical boundaries. And so I'm going to introduce him a little bit shortly, briefly. So I met Alberto in 2012 here in the Honors College when the dean at the time, I was teaching in the law school, and he called my department head and said, come over and meet this guy. And Bill, my department head, called me, and so we came over and met Alberto. And he and I got to be very good friends over time. We kind of hit it off. And at the time, by that time, Alberto had assumed a role, which is the UNESCO Chair in Bioethics and Human Rights, which he is a program sponsored by UNESCO in which Alberto then, under that umbrella, could build a bioethics educational and promotional, I don't know if promotional is the right word, activities. And the activity that I got involved in at the time was called Bioethics, Multiculturalism, and Religion. And so we've been doing that project for, the project's been in existence since 2009. I got involved in 2012, and we just published our 8th book, I think. I just got it in the mail yesterday. And so it's a very ongoing project. We meet every couple of years. Alberto is a professor of law. He has a PhD from Complutense University in Madrid, and he has worked for the Council of Europe, representing the state of Spain with regard to bioethics issues. That was earlier in his career. In 2009, he came about the time he got the chair, he came to the United States and was at MD Anderson for 2 years, I think, working with Colleen, who is here, and Colleen was at Anderson, in the Department of Integrated Ethics. And that began Alberto's relationship with Houston. And so subsequent to his coming to Houston in 2012, when I met him, he came back every year for several years and stayed with me. We've become very good friends. And recently, this past year, we began to organize a trip for students to Rome. And so last May 2005, we have some of our graduates, if you will, of the program are here. And we're going to repeat the program again in 2006, in case anybody's interested. And you can find out more about that after the program. So anyway, here's Alberto. Alberto is a bioethicist, a law professor, and highly experienced in the international community and knows people everywhere. So anyway, here he is, my good friend, Alberto.
Good morning, and thank you very much, John, for your introduction, and especially for your friendship during all these years. I want to thank the University of Houston, especially the Honor College with the Dean Haiti that has welcomed me today, and also Colleen Gallagher as responsible for the Medicine and Society. And it's for me really an honor to be in this college, to share some ideas that are moving in my heart and in my mind regarding a phenomenon that probably you share, it's real in the world, that is the fact of polarization. I see that polarization is something that is happening at different levels. If we talk about the general situation of security and peace, there is polarization between North and South, between East and West, between states and countries that are in processes of conflict and war because of polarization. And this is something that can be also replicated at different levels. When there is different poles, different tensions between people in diverse environments. The idea of this presentation and conversation with you is to inspire to what extent ethics it's something that is needed today in order to minimize these levels of tension or conflicts. There is actually around 56 conflicts of war. That means violence, that means dead people, that mean open conflicts. It is not only the conflict between Israel and Palestine, that is one of them, or Russia and Ukraine, that is one of them, but it's in Sudan, Congo, Yemen, narco-traffic conflicts in Mexico are in the category of open conflicts, open. And one can think, and what can I do for this? Probably we can do very few things directly. But conflicts and polarization is not only a matter between the states, because conflicts and polarization also can happen in our personal environment, in our family, in our university, in our sport club, in our church. And my idea is not only to talk today about what the states and the UNESCO and the UN system should fix or improve, but to what extent ethics, bioethics, and the global ethics approach can help you and me to become better people, better citizens. And that's the title of the presentation, Building Ethics in Times of Polarization. As I mentioned before, one thing is polarization, that means conflict and tension. Another thing is diversity. We live in a world that is diverse. But diversity don't mean necessarily conflict among the people. Ethics, bioethics, global bioethics, we have been in this university teaching with Professor John Lustruth, global bioethics, can be instrumental, can be useful, I would say it can be crucial to improve that situation in order to get what is our inspiration, our ideal, that is peace, that is happiness, that is, in English you have a nice expression, human flourishing. It seems a little bit strange. No, human flourishing, only plants flourish. No. There is also, metaphorically speaking, the human flourishing, to realize, to make from myself, for ourselves as a community, the best that we can, even in a context of diversity, even in a context in which we can have even opposed ideas, opposed conceptions. In that context, I have to have a global approach to bioethics, as we will mention later, means the possibility of integrated in a global world, in a globalized world, and an inspiration and a commitment to foster the art of convergence and cooperation in global ethics. That means convergence because even though we have different ideas, different backgrounds, different culture, different blood, different color, a lot of differences, we can converge for the common good and also for our personal and human development through ethics. Ethics that is not the same thing that the law. One thing is regulation that the states and the legitimate authorities produce to facilitate living together, and another thing is ethics. If you can build a kind of pyramid, you can see that at the top, you can find the positive law, public law, private law, civil law, international law are norms produced and approved to help the living together, and it's approved by the legitimate authority of the government. In a second level, you can find other types of regulation that are the deontological codes. Do you know what a deontological code means? A deontological, someone that can raise the hand and to say, have you heard about it? Deontological code of physicians, the deontological code of communicators and journalists, deontological codes of nurses are regulations that are produced not by the state, the public authority, but from the different specific sectors, the professionals associated, they can produce this kind of norms or regulations to help the good exercise of the profession, the different professors. We have also the ontological code of lawyers that mean ethical and professional guidelines that you should put in practice to continue working in your profession. But in addition to the national law, to the deontological law or codes, you have your conscience. And when you will become a professional, you have to move in all these different levels of law or regulations or norms, but taking into account that your conscience is the most important thing, because this is what is going to make you flourish as a human. It makes you flourish as a lawyer, a physician, and also as a good citizen by fulfilling the different norms of the state. But the national law, the positive law, and I am a lawyer, is not going to make you happy. It's not going to make you the best person. I like to say that I use a Vespa in Rome, where I live, to drive from my house to the university. And when I drive my Vespa and I stop to the traffic light and I see the red light, I stop. And I stop because there is a public law that indicates red, stop. Green, go ahead. But when the light turns from red to green, and I start with my nice white Vespa, where I've been also driving with John in Rome, sometimes, I'm a But when the light turned green, I knew, I'm so happy. I'm becoming a better citizen. I'm really flourishing. Now, relax. The state law, the public law is not going necessarily to make you is the whole of happiness. But it is my conscience. And it's the possibility of having good relations of friendship, of collaboration that goes beyond the law, but that in my conscience I can develop to grow as a citizen. And to move in this table that you are taking a look in this scale of conflict or of these different steps of the situation where our relations at a personal level, societal level, public level can happen, from peace, the ideal, situation to war as the extreme level of conflict. As you can see here, polarization, it's in the number 3, social polarization. That means a situation that can move and that should be minimized, ethically speaking, in order to avoid an increased situation that can move to conflict, to disagreement, and to the war. And this is something that is not going to be conquered by technologies, not only by law. It's going that works for the conscience of the people that, as you and me, belong to a community. We are not living alone. We are no islands. We are in a constant relation with others. This scale of conflict or friendship or harmony, it's something that is part of our evolution, of the dynamic of our lives. But when we talk about polarization, the point of departure is not polarization, it's the fact of living in a diverse world, because it means the existence of a variety of ideas, identities, cultures, beliefs, and within a group, within a community. And this diversity represents something positive. This plurality, it's a mutual enrichment. Allow me to make a parallelism or an analogy. Polarity, not polarization, polarity exists in the material world. It exists in the biological sphere. It exists in the language and the reality of electromechanics. There is the diversity of different elements. If they keep a certain harmony, they can make us products like electricity, like magnets. Even the matter contains this kind of polarity. And this is possible in biology, in genetics. This diversity makes also to emerge life. In vegetables, in animals, in humans, for sure. Why? Because this polarity allows to work in diversity, keeping the equilibrium, the harmony of the diversity. But if this is put to the extremes, the benefits and the richness that in biology, magnetics, electromechanics, and even in the matter broke. And it's not possible life. It is not possible to use this kind of energy. So we jump to the human arena and say that to some extent, in our society can happen the same. If we don't manage properly diversity, trying to keep this harmony, this good sense, this good relation between citizens, we can find these scales of conflict. That means that the polarity, the diversity, is transforming this in polarization. That means to move to the extremes of radicalization and then to break the good things that we are called to live together. So in polarization, there is this extreme division between opposing groups or opinions with little willingness to engage in dialogue and an encounter. I heard the story of a box player that has to combat in a combat of box. And his trainer suggested him, do not study your rival. Do not read and explore about his wife, family. Do not watch him to the eyes. Because if you do, you risk to lose the possibility to hit him and to beat him and to win the combat. When we know each other, when we try to be empathic, when we try to think not in an individualistic way, but to be open to the others, it is easy to be compassionate, to live the ethical demands that can allow to help others, to support others in diversity, and also to flourish, you and me as humans. Polarization represents division and confrontation, as we mentioned. And so, as at least in my opinion, this diversity in a global world, is a natural and positive phenomenon, diversity. It drives creativity, it drives inclusion, and polarization is negative to the extent that creates conflicts. In a society, in a diverse society, can become polarized and to move in the table of conflict if it is not managed properly. And who is going to manage this situation? You and me. This is not a matter of the politicians, of the church, of the associations, of the business, like moral entities. It's every one of us. And this is something that we can do today. And we can do here, you that are in the university, we came to the university to receive and to offer in a space of education that means how I can grow and flourish, not only as a professional in the future, but also as a human person today. And in the field specifically of bioethics, where we are talking today, bridging ethics in times of polarizations, there is different traditions or different concepts that I think are correlated between what is ethics, that means what it's inside us, and depends on our conscience that make us to choose good things and to avoid bad things. This is a maximum primum principia of ethics. That when we have to choose between different options in our lives, we prefer what is better and we try to avoid what is worse. And this is something that it doesn't depend necessarily from the law. It depends from our conscience that has to be educated according to values, according to principles, according to lifestyles that can help to grow you as a human and to contribute also to the good of the community. But in bioethics, it's a special discipline, recent discipline, that tries to move in different specific areas like clinical ethics, like biomedical ethics, research ethics, healthcare ethics, public health ethics. All of them are different sectors that in the academia and also in politics are trying to establish some guidelines, some principles that can help either to do the good thing and to avoid the evil, that can facilitate discernment when we have to choose between different alternatives of action. And in global bioethics, it is more recent. It's a kind of new version. It doesn't avoid the previous one, but that makes that there's a lot of decisions that that affect people, communities, and also the different states that are global. Topics related with public health and topics related to the necessity of collaboration and cooperation between the states, and specifically in the field that I used to work, that is, it's global bioethics that is produced in international organizations. That means in the United Nations system, where UNESCO, where the World Health Organization, where UNICEF are specialized agencies of the United Nations. It's like in a small United Nations focused in specific topics. In the case of UNESCO, we will talk, it's an international system of the United Nations for UNESCO, U-N-E, S, C, O of organization. What do you think UNESCO means? United Nations for E of education. U-E-S of science. And C for culture. UNESCO, within the United Nations system, is the specialized agency that is focused on where topics related with bioethics it's more frequent. In addition to UNESCO, probably the World Health Organization, that is especially for public and public health issues, works in this field. That means that in the international organizations at the global level, there are people that gather to discuss about how we can be better citizens and how we can give some principles to the different states and to the people of the states about what is better to do when we are dealing with topics related with human life and health, that is the field of bioethics. The reason why they gather to deal with these issues in education, science, culture, It's because international cooperation is needed. And in that context, the foundation of these instruments of international law, like treaties or conventions, like recommendations, like declarations, are guidelines and are law for the 192 states belonging to the United Nations systems. But in addition to the international or the United Nations systems, there are also regional organizations dealing with these topics. For example, the Organization of the American States. The United States belong to this organization as it belongs to the UN system. And all these states gather because they need to collaborate, to cooperate internationally to facilitate living together in peace. Living together with some elements, principles of discernment that can help the people, help the professionals, help politicians to work for the common good, to work for the cohesion of the peoples internationally and also nationally. And in that context is that global bioethics takes the category of human rights as a point of reference or a universal framework that can help the states and the governments to produce these principles and guidelines. Because human rights, it's a category that has been developed during the time that make us to know and to grasp that humans have specific fundamental needs. We need to live and to flourish as people, as citizens. They are fundamental needs. And that we claim, I have right to freedom. Why? Because if we have a space to develop our freedom, we can flourish as humans, as citizens. If not, if there is coercion, if I can be restricted, if I cannot move, it's more difficult to live our existence. If I claim, I have right to life, what does it mean this? It means that life is a fundamental good, it's a fundamental need to exist in the world. But if you have a real right to life, you have the right to life, the right to live, not to live, but to life. That means that I have the duty not to kill you. Otherwise, to claim that I have a right to privacy, these are another fundamental good. But what does it mean, the privacy? That there is something that belongs to our intimate domain that shouldn't be violated. Imagine that I go to the bag. What is your name? Kira. Kira, no. Kira. And I am taking a look to the bag of earring. And I have a lot of curiosity about what you have in your bag. Here I start to become a little bit nervous. Just look like this, because I'm trying, I have the intention, manifested intention, to violate her privacy. Privacy is something we need in our life. Things, fundamental goods that shouldn't be violated or trespassed. And the category of human rights is helping a lot at an international level to develop a global bioethics that can grasp these not only fundamental but universal goods. Because if I go to China or to India or to Spain and I try to get into the back of my students in those countries, they are going to jump. It's something that is connatural. And our fundamental needs, basic needs, that it's good to recognize also politically that it's important to make laws in which it's guaranteed, recognized, protected to develop these fundamental rights. The right to life, the right to physical and mental integrity, the right to personality, the right to privacy, the right to health, the right to participate in the public. So I would say the list of human rights that at least so far has been recognized as universal. I'm sorry. This is something that was started recently in the world with the Universal Declaration on Human Rights in 1948. After a very hard period of 2 world wars, finally, the states started to say, hey guys, we cannot continue doing war among us. We need peace. We need security. Also, we need to grow economically, and that needs to be in harmony and not to be abandoned to this kind of tragedies of killing people, destroying properties, and making the people fall into that temptation of disharmony, of this extreme polarization that makes and creates war. In global bioethics, the merit of bioethics is not only that it's taking human rights into consideration, that also claims about the duties we have. The duties. Because especially in Western countries, like in the US, like in Spain, like in Italy, we are very easy. We're happy to go, oh, have a freedom, peace and love. No, this is a different thing. I have right to life, I have right to. But when are we ready and willing to talk about our duties, our responsibilities? And this is something that global bioethics is emphasizing, also to know better what are our responsibilities, our duties. And on the other hand, the global bioethics has also a particularity that is more open to different cultures, to different religions, and to make a general vision of all the globalized world. In 2000, And 5, the UNESCO approved an universal declaration, it's a political and legal instrument, in bioethics and human rights. And the first 7 principles were more or less already accepted in the world and recognized, and even in teaching ethics, were quite common. But something interesting of this international instrument is principles 8 to 13, where you can see the more social and multicultural approach that can help to have a more integral vision of bioethics. Principles, these are principles of equity, justice, and equity, the respect of cultural diversity, we are talking about diversity, and pluralism, solidarity and cooperation, sharing benefits of the development of science, the protection of future generations, and the protection of the environment. This is like the Carta Magna, I would say, of the global bioethics at the political and legal level that has been also developed slightly in other instruments. The interesting thing of this declaration, especially in Article 12, that is related to the topic of diversity, is that the United Nations agreed that it's important to take into consideration diversity and plurality. However, and this however is very important, shall these considerations of diversity shall not be invoked to undermine human dignity, human rights, and fundamental freedom. So this is an option in which the United Nations has already recognized that beyond our culture, beyond our ideas, beyond our lifestyles, there is something that comes from the very nature of humans, and that is universal, and that cannot be changed by the agreement of politicians or lawmakers or some other people. In the university as I work, it's a Catholic university, we have been working with a notion of integral ecology that was promoted by Pope Francis, but that is not original from Pope Francis. Integral ecology. Integral ecology started in the middle of the 20th century, and it was more focused on the environmental issues. Probably the merit of Pope Francis was to include this in integral ecology, or human ecology, that mentioned also Pope Benedict XVI, into the arena of a more social, and not only the environment, but also the social and human ecology. And it's, there is a kind of elements that can help, and it's part of the social teaching, of the Christian social teaching, about how we can point to the peace using and taking decisions in ethics, in bioethics, having in mind some fundamental values, the truth, the freedom, and justice. And then we can use, like the archer, you say archer in English? The archer is pointing to the peace, his or her intention is to hit the peace. I'm sorry for the dove there, because if you go to the target to kill the dove, it's not very polite. I'm so sorry for this, but understand me. And you have some principles, the human dignity, something recognized, not only the Catholic or Christian, it's universal, the common good, solidarity, are principles that we have to manage. And for the archer, sometimes you have to change the art a little bit more or less, more human dignity, more focusing on the human, in the common good. Imagine it's not the same thing, the situation during COVID, where common good make us to stay at home and whatever. Oh, this is my freedom and my human dignity. Yes, but you need to balance common good and human dignity and solidarity. Oh, this is my problem, or this is your problem. No, there's some problems that are common. We have to work together. The important thing, first of all, is to point to the peace, because I could be pointing to the other side. So exactly the opposite, you're wrong. And this is not a matter of opinion, of culture. According to my religion, I should point like war. You're wrong. We should be inspired to look for peace. And in that sense, I think that a convergence between these diversities, a moral and political demand, the fact of fostering this convergence, this cooperation, not only at the level of ideas, but working together, it's a moral, in the conscience, and political demand. So the representatives of the government should work with this intention, entailing to assure effective democratic participation in the different cultures and having the capacity to play, to move, to inspire not only the language of human rights, but also the language of duties, human duties we have for the community. And let me conclude with this table, in which I have been trying, very telegraphically speaking, how we can work for a sustainable bioethics, and a sustainable bioethics with a social impact. To the right, to the left, you find a social and community perspective. At the right, an individualistic perspective, where we claim is that we need to move more for a social and community perspective, trying to prevent dilemmas in ethics and bioethics instead of solving problems we have been causing because we have not taken into consideration certain ethical aspects. To focus more on duties than in rights. To promote the lives and health of the poor and vulnerable. To integrate better intercultural religions and cultures in our decisions and our actions. To promote more education and less politicization, because bioethical issues sometimes are too polarized, because are used by politicians to break the difference between their electors, to make the difference. Instead of promoting what is a common good and universal, a more general view, they want to make a party. And that's why there's some parties that are in the government and some others that are part of the opposition. And those of the opposition, their mission is to oppose those that are in the government. And this is perverse to some extent, because that means that instead of trying to look together what we can do together for the good of the nation, the people, I'm trying to do good thing for my party, and I want to abort all the good initiatives of the other parties. So we need more values and more principles and less rules and laws. And I know that I am accusing myself that I am a lawyer. Less rules, less laws. We need more compassion. And this is something from our conscience, for our personal identity. More solidarity, more virtue. We need more dialogue, less ideologies. And finally, if I aspire and we inspire a bioethics that help us to become better people and to contribute more effectively to the common good for a better society through justice and solidarity. Justice and solidarity. And in that sense, beyond the legal framework, beyond the legal rules, the deontological rules, if we explore the path of virtue ethics with attitude, honesty, empathy, compassion, love, and friendship, we are going to accomplish to some extent also the aspiration of the United Nations that we are part of a common brotherhood. This is the language of the international law. We are as the same humanity, and we should behave with these attitudes in regard of the others. And most importantly, if we are faithful to a conscience that is educated, this is something that will help us to flourish as humans and to reach, to some extent, the happiness that we aspire. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions?
So earlier you had the list of steps, if you will, from peace through conflict.
Scale of conflict.
Yes. Once you've gotten beyond point 3 and you were headed towards full-on conflict and war, how do you go backwards? How do you get back to that communication and that education and the ethical dealing with the diversity?
Yeah. I would say it's step by step, and when you are, depending on the level you are talking this scale, imagine that we're not talking about the states and the war, but in your family, there is a situation that there is violence, that there is this kind of rupture, how we can resolve this. So basically, I think it's dialogue, empathy, capacity of asking or accepting forgiveness, to take time to heal wounds. And we are talking about a family, 3, 4, 5. In the family, there is a war, but there is violence. Some places are violence. You can move back, but you need to go step by step. Because if you don't open the space of dialogue and conversation in the spirit of recognizing our own mutual defects, you don't have the capacity of forgiveness, and you don't heal wounds, you stay in that state or even worse. But that requires the dynamic of ethics. That is a dynamic of action. And the dynamic of action means that I need to identify what is happening, to discern that I want to put my arrow in the right direction, and one is there to move forward and to be proactive for the dialogue, for the forgiveness, to ask or to receive forgiveness, and then try to transform this small space community that is your family. If you ask me about how to resolve this in Israel, in Palestine today, I don't have the resolution. But the principles are the same. The thing that it's easy to do in a community of 5 or 4 than a community of millions of people. But the main challenge at the societal level is how we educate. How we educate, not the university have to educate you. It's how you as students want to be in the future. In your family, in your work, in your company, in your whatever. Because you are the one that are going to offer drops of living together that can transform a little bit your world. Perhaps now we are scandalized about what is happening in the world. But if you study history, you will realize that our world today is much better than 200, 300, 1,000 years ago. The thing is that today, because of the globalized community of information, we know a lot of things. But in certain periods of this history, there's a lot of battles, wars, bombs, ships, bombing, wars, invasions, much more than today. The thing is that now we have to adapt and to know what is happening, number one, and then to relax a little bit. Oh, the world, this is a kind of apocalypse, this is going to fall down, and the atomic bomb. Relax because you cannot transform those high decisions, but you can transform your family, your community of students, and to live happily, and to flourish by using these ethical dynamics to move from open conflict to tension, to polarization, to harmony. National or international level should go also as a private level, because at the end it's the same dynamic of human relations. And most of also the international conflicts come also because of tensions in human relations and the lack of justice or the just of abuses from one part of another that escalates. No? You used to say it's a kind of escalation of violence that comes exactly from situations that could be of disagreement, of diversity, but that at a certain point it starts a dynamic that is perverse, that is moving in a kind of, like in a slippery slope, to the temptation of violence, and that could be also legitimate to reacting with violence against injustice. But if we can try to keep balance, and that the relations between people could move more smoothly without an idealistic or that would be to guarantee a kind of living together in diversity, living together without violence, not without conflict. Conflict to some extent is part of this polarity that also creates even good opportunities, even in a business or even in a family. So you cannot live without any conflict. Because it's in our nature that at a certain point our diversity in balance it can create. These can create also opportunities of growing as humans, because the exercise of more dialogue, more forgiveness, more telling the truth, it's going to improve. In general, it is going to be better to overcome. As it's happened also in the relation, in marriage and in the partner relation, that when there are some situations of disagreement or conflict, if you together handle properly, you are going to grow as a unity of the partner. And in an analogy, you can move also this to the relation of the governments.
Just in response, another aspect of that is that when the very coming into existence of something like is a symbolic thing. I mean, it's understood that the implementation of something like that is going to be super complicated. But it becomes symbolic and it becomes aspirational, and then it becomes like a memory or an ideal that people strive for. And so the mere existence of the thing, the fact of it, in a sense, has its own inspirational power. And in a way, it's kind of the middle step. Is the existence of the idea that we are, or something like that, we're moving towards.
Thank you.
Here's Rita.
Do we have a student question? I thought. I really enjoyed the perspective of individual action, being able to create a world where you have global connections to solve these problems. And I'm not quite sure how to phrase my question, but when you think about the increasing nationalism that we're seeing in countries all around the world, is that just global polarization and the principles to address it are the same as what you discussed?
You mentioned increasing the global
Nationalism, so countries wanting to only focus on themselves, being interested only in their own good. Is that just global polarization, or how should we think about that, and do the same principles apply?
As far as I understand, it's a trend. It's a trend that is in Europe is present, in some countries of Latin America, Mexico, probably here in the United States. But I think that we should keep, in my opinion, if it is a matter of identity, that I want to reinforce our national identity, this is something good. I want to be always more American, more Spanish, more Italian. But when this kind of vision of our own identity is going to be to reject, even at the level of principles, though that are diverse nationality, I'm thinking that I'm empowering myself and I'm closing the eyes to the reality that this is a globalized world. And you cannot live together only in your country, in your state, in your village, ignoring the rest of the world. And to say, as the Italian will manifest with gestures. But do you know what does it mean, this? Look, this is universal language.
Yeah.
It's Italian, no, but everybody understands. So I don't care about you. This is not, I think this will create a dynamic that is going to ruin also the national community by excluding, rejecting, not having empathy, compassion, solidarity. And it doesn't mean to lose, it shouldn't mean to lose your identity. Because I think that part of every single identity of humans, it is not only the language, it's not only the color of the skin, it's not only the values, but all of them has this natural law, I would say, interrelationship, that means that I should behave in regard of the others, not like this, but probably how I can feed myself, how I would gonna grow and nurture my own identity by knowing you, diverse, better. And now I can grow as a human by helping you and doing good things for you without losing any of your characteristics as American or Spanish or Texans. Because we are oriented to the other. We have a nature that needs to transcend. And transcend doesn't mean only a religious transcendence. It's to transcend in the others. And not only the one that are my friends, that I know, and I'm a nice person with those that I know, better. The more that I know the others, my heart, my mind can be serve them better without losing myself or their own identity. If I don't know you, I should keep starting with respect and then to approach you, to know more about you, and not to think that you are like the rival of the boxer, that I don't want to see you, to know about you, because otherwise I cannot hit you hard. Mhm.
Anybody else? Any other questions,
Yeah.
comments? Ah.
Okay, so my question is, how exactly, so you mentioned earlier that we should have responsible regulation and increase our virtue ethics and compassion, but how exactly do we foster virtuous ethics within people when they're going to reject things like engaging in dialogue to begin with?
When I'm talking about virtue ethics, I'm not talking in the sense of to promote or to, you can know more about this, is one of the different schools of thought about ethics. No, I was talking about ethics. And how can you flourish and become a virtuous girl? To form, and you have already, to some extent, your conscience. What are my values, my principles, my aspirations? You are going to the peace and not to the war. And then to discern, that means when you have to take decisions, important decisions, you have to analyze the situation, the reality. You have to discern, to value according to your principles, and according to that, to take some decisions. This is something that happens every day. Every day. Some of them are very important, some others less, sometimes, but this is something that is something that you can practice every day. And sometimes you will find even dilemmas. What should I do? Should I forgive someone that didn't treat me well? Or should I keep, and I'm going to write WhatsApp to insult her or him? You have to be sure. You can do both. So, and these small ethical decisions are the ones that make us like Michelangelo and had to sculpt the Moses. It's to work every day in the right direction. And when you, you don't have to relax. Come back, you can start thinking, telling the truth, having attitudes, to ask forgiveness to the other person, and to try to re-establish the good path of the relations. Because most of our dilemmas are ethical dilemmas regard the relation with others. The relation with others. Some other will happen professionally. This is something that you will take into the future, but now basically you can work everything, your ethical life, doing the good things you think are good, avoiding the things you think are bad for you and for the others.
So I want to say thank you and thank all of you. I want to point out something about what makes Alberto unique and something to pay attention to in a sense. Because Alberto embodies the human rights ethos and international ethos, which is can be extremely inspirational, and it's like a vibe or something that kind of emanates from the United Nations sphere, or that level of the international sphere, which we get not exposed to too much in Houston, in a sense, because we're a very international city, but it's oriented towards business and less towards international, public international affairs. Anyway, so thank you, Alberto,
Thank you,
very
John.
much, and thank all of you.
Mhm.
And